first thing I wanted to say was thank you for being here, okay, and welcome to this pitch on Brede-Wilkins. And one of the things we're going to try to do today is just give you a little dimensions of the program and what the board does and what they don't do, and some of the ideas that we'd really like to explore but we haven't in the past. So thank you for coming. You know that this is a long-time legacy program, and we're passing out for you to look at these things that were put together by one of the student board members. It's our artwork in front of you, and to give you an idea of some of the schools that have been supported. Some people think that we deal primarily with Florida schools, but that's not true. We've sent money as far away as Shanghai. Believe it or not. Okay, in that handout that you have, this thing here, 3 pages, I realize it's an eye test, but if you got notes, if you got a chance to write notes, you can, and then if you've got questions that you'd like to ask, I can take care of that for you too. And I wanted to stop before we even started and ask if there's any particular items you'd like me to address, because I'm going to spend about 23 minutes if I do it right and with you, but I'd hate to have that 23 minutes end without addressing what you came to hear. So anybody come in with a question? I want to address a question for you, because we have, believe it or not, Karen, and in the past, in association with the resident council, back when Gene Walker, yeah, good old Gene, was chair, we did have outreach to some of the caregivers, some of the POA people, as you put in your email. So that's, I'm really delighted to have your email yesterday and to be able to welcome you here today, okay? So things like that we can do. The second picture down, the chart 2, shows you our obvious output. What do we do? Well, we give scholarships, right? We give scholarships. But I think it's much deeper than scholarships, because it's the building of citizenship for the future. It's really creating citizens that we'll never see the full benefit from, but at least we're putting something forward that creates a new, different world. But more importantly, and maybe even most importantly for the founders, it was building community here. And I'll hit that a little bit later, but in the opening address to this bunch of residents, Leonard Wilkins spoke about building community. And that was the essence of what he thought he was doing with the scholarship program. It took me about 10 years to learn that, so you're getting the crash course. Now, how many of you were attending the June 5 awards dinner? Al, you were there, were you not?
No, I was a while out of the country.
Okay. Well, that's right, you were on your Holland trip, right? I do remember.
Yes.
Okay, so that event is set up every year. It's part of our calendar. And in that event, what we really try to do is honor the students, honor the graduates, honor our former students, servers. And the difference between our scholarships and the scholarships that LifeSpace has, for the most part, for their team members, is that our folks are leaving the payroll, by and large. They're going off for undergraduate studies. So basically we're sending them on their way. So we try to focus them on that, and we do our best, but every time we find out we didn't do something just quite right. And you might have heard at that session, that 2016 graduate who left here in 2016, and what did she do? She's now a cardiac nurse over at Advent Hospital, went through the UCF program of nurses training, et cetera, et cetera. Big deal. Okay, look at the fourth chart. It's another eye test, but I wanted to let you have a dimension of how much is our program? What's our program really like? Well, the point that I would make is that at any given time, we have about 40 active scholarships. We like to enter 10 a year. So we'll have 10 freshmen, 10 sophomores, 10 juniors, 10 graduating seniors, and every year, given we have enough resources, we like to put another 10 in So that's about the size. And it's about a $250,000 package. It's always in the mix for that. And our scholarships are funded fully at the time they're awarded. $10,000 is set aside, and it's awaiting for them, but we don't give it out all at once, because guess what? They don't all finish. So we make them come back and show us that they got good grades, they're still active in the school, and then send us the bill and we'll put in another $2,500, but we pay it out in 4 increments of $2,500. So that gives you an idea of the size of the program. Now, this is gonna give you this is gonna be a little more detailed. And for some of you that are interested in perhaps serving with the board, you'll really wanna hear this next chart, because this is a timeline of activities for 2023, but it is representative of most years. Okay, and right now, we're beginning that process in about 60 days. We just made awards, but in November, Dick Altman, who's the selections guy that does that for us, will resurrect the criteria for these scholarships. He'll begin to work that so that by the end of the year, we will have a new criteria for the 2024 program. And it has to be approved by the CFF, the Central Florida Foundation Board of Directors. So that's gonna start. But immediately after the first of the year, we invite not only the servers, but we actually invite their parents. We try to get them to come with them to an orientation that's gonna set the ground rules for what their application's got to look like, the fact that it is competitive, not everybody gets one, and they are competitively awarded. So how well they do on that, how well their grades are, how well they write a essay does count. And Dick can tell you much more about that than I have. He's been doing it ever since you've been on the board, haven't you, Dick? Yeah, so I really appreciate that. Now, that criteria then is given to them. They make application, usually about Valentine's Day, they're due, and then the applications come in and they go through a selection process. Board members do participate in that selection committee, but it is an independent committee, a point well made, because prior to our activity with the Central Florida Foundation, we didn't really fully understand that. And so we participate on the board, but we are not we can't decide it. Donors can't be the approvers of that, but we can participate. So that board is a lot of local educators that participate in it, and that helps us have a good professional program. So that independent selection committee concludes about April timeframe. It goes to a board meeting again with Central Florida. It's approved. We go through the awards process on the June 5 or around Memorial Day. We'd like to do it in May if we can, but we can't always do it in May because the kids take off. And this year we were fighting with the opening of this whole complex. Remember, it was June 7th, so we did well having it on June 5 with the green curtains and all. So we'll back that up if we can. The next event, the bottom event, is highlighted for you, and that's the next thing that I hope you'll all be able to attend, and that is in October. I think it's October 7. We will honor the other half of our mission. The first half of the mission is the students, the awardees, the scholarships, but maybe the more important part of it is honoring the people that make it happen, the donors, the people that staff the board, that do the selection committee, and all the sort of things that we do as a board to make sure that we have a viable program. And that's what that's about. I don't think it's any secret, or it won't be a worse kept secret if it is, because I'm going to tell you that we're going to honor Robert Coleman again this year. He's probably the oldest living member of the board. He reaches back all the way to when it was trustees as a private foundation. So he's got quite a history with us. And Bob is, I think, 95 now. So he's not doing it anymore, but we won't forget him. I'd like to then, any questions on that calendar? That thing is repeated every year, kind of in the same mode. But I think that the important thing is to realize that this scholarship board here does pretty much control the criteria. And we've never had an issue when we talked to the Central Florida Foundation. They do approve it, they asked to approve it, they do approve all the awards, but we actually create the requirement. How many hours are they gonna work? Yeah, Hal.
Could you explain a little bit more about the criteria's change from year to year?
That's exactly the question I had written down.
You know, because I would think that basically they would stay pretty much the same.
Well, except how, for the resource issue. At one time, well, since I've been here, we actually gave scholarships to children of team members. Some of you might remember a year ago, we had a young lady that spoke who attended Notre Dame, and her mother was the finance director. She had that job here. So we have the resources, you know, we could do much more than that. So that would be a squinching down of the criteria. And we've also had that in other considerations, but primarily it's one of how broad are the parameters, and it's mostly been servers during the entire life of
But
the
the
agent.
criteria for the recipients
Yes.
are basically the same, because I would imagine that, you know, if you're working for something all year long, and all of a sudden you find out that that's not one of the criteria, that would kind of throw a monkey wrench into it.
It would be, and that's the reason it's approved before the year. You know, I said what he's gonna do is have that 2024 scholarship program approved, and we'll have it in their hands before they ever make application, and that will not change during the year. That we honor for that year, but we can change it later on depending on where we are.
You might add that we added performance evaluation as part of their criteria.
Oh, yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, a good example. Dick, go ahead. Why don't you
Well,
jump in?
prior to this past year, we never considered how well they performed. And now we get a performance evaluation from the team members that are their supervisors that we can put into the picture as we make our selection for awardees.
I always thought that was considered, so that was, I just learned something new. Yeah.
I see.
Well, of course, those of us on the board knew these kids,
Yeah.
but the selection committee is made up of people who have never.
I didn't know you could.
That's for me, I'm not here. The selection committee is made up of people who've never seen these kids, so they have no knowledge of the of them physically or mentally, or, you know, how well they perform. And so, that was a new criteria that was added in this past year, which is, I think, a worthwhile thing to consider.
So now it's more of a formality, because it's the.
Yeah, they're rated, actually, Orlando rates them 1 through 10,
Okay.
so that we have an idea of whether they're top performers or mediocre or the runs of the litter.
And people that are just not available, you know, there's a lot of people.
I understand.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Let's talk about donors. Donors are the lifeblood of this organization, and regardless of how distasteful money might be to talk about, it has to come onto the play, onto the discussion, because without the resources, without donations, we can't do this program. Everybody that I see in the room is pretty generous donator already, so I don't mind saying it. But our donations, the point I wanted to make with this board, we really have to do some remedial action this year, because our donor base has shrunk, and many times it's just attrition. The people you see dying in these memorial events, we've lost a lot of residents, and many of them were really good, substantial supporters. So we shrunk last year to about the number that were supporting Brede-Wilkins down to about 44% of our residents here. So we hope to make that more robust. And And not only is that a difficulty, but sometimes the donations, to get on the list, we don't have any minimum. So the most of the donations are less than $100. So they really doesn't make much of a dent in a program which is gonna spend out about $100,000 a year. So we will probably start something in the next year that we'll talk about $1 a day is how much, $2 a day, and things like that, because we've got to broaden that donor base. Last year, and I think this is the chart I have it on, we were actually saved by a match. Probably all the residents here will know, but you may not know, Karen, but Steve and Charlene Nash, who sponsor another incentive for exceptional performance on the job, the Exceptional Service Award, they sponsor that, but they actually put up a match. They said if you match, we'll match all donations up to $25,000. And that was matched quickly by residents and staffed up, and we actually came in the last month with about $55,000 donations. But that's only saved the year. Without that end of year, we would have been really picking with the chickens, so to speak. So we've really got to broaden the base. Some of that's understandable with our attrition, the pandemic, the construction that's been difficult, but we need to resurrect our own presence. So I'm really looking for people to help me project into the community. And I also wanted to make the point that traditionally it's had a very broad base of support amongst residents. Residents really do support this. But starting with the pandemic, it really, when we locked it up, when we were eating out of sacks, that kind of went downhill. And then we got a lot of new people in here with 20 new villas where some of you occupy. And so we need to work that. But donations are a problem. And I guess I've said enough on that, have I not? Any questions on donations? Okay, non-endowed fund, that was a big deal here. Up to 2019, we only worked in a non-endowed world. We did not try to set money aside and do the rigor of an endowed fund, which only spends a certain amount of the corpus every year and pays expenses, and so we're in the 4th year. It was a 5-year program to try to work that out, and we're in the last year of that. So the endowment, I think, is going to be a winner, but it is a little more difficult because we have to live within a spend out guideline of the board that controls that endowment fund. I always like to point out, though, that when one of our former residents, who I've never met, the Dietz family, Jess and Clay Dietz, did you know them, Peggy? I didn't either. But anyhow, they set up a family trust, and every year we receive just a little bit short of $2,000 out of that distribution. So the endowments that they set up for the community, and I don't know what else they support, I just know what our little piece is, but it's really nice to have that base coming in every year, so it's something available to us. Central Florida Foundation makes all that possible. They do a lot in legacy work. But I just wanted you to know that the Central Florida Foundation is really a professional group, much more professional than anything I've worked with before. They really do a very good job for us. They take care of all the reporting, accounting, et cetera, et cetera. They're good people. Okay, let's talk about what does the board do? And I put on my notes in here, I said 5 things. And the first thing we all do, and that's try to keep the flame alive in the residencies, and that's going to be really important for us this year. We really need to up the presence here in the community and this information time was intended to do that. But we also oversee financial operations. This is primarily on the present board, that primarily Steve Nash is doing that. Steve looks at we get quarterly statements and board members are given a copy of that to see. And also, Joan Gargaglione, works that for family and friends. What's happened to us before, and it really happened last year substantially, is that a lot of our children, for instance, my own children, they want to buy me something. Well, I don't need any more chocolate, to be frank with you. And the amount I drink, a bottle lasts a pretty long time. But the point is, I said, well, if you want to do something for me, you can give me a donation to the Brede-Wilkins. So I had two of my kids pick up on that. So that's kind of an initiative that we can ask. And Jean Walker was really strong on that too. She did a lot of the scholarship work at the University of Michigan years ago. So she was really attuned to that. That was very helpful. But so overseeing financial operations, and then we've already talked about what Dick does on the board with his gang, to design and participate in the application selection and the award of scholarships. That's our main business. That's our operations. That's what we do as a company. But we also have to outreach to residents of Village on the Green by welcoming new residents. And that's one of that we all have the opportunity to do, but that we need one person or a couple people on the board to be in that function, be in that outreach function. And that is to me as important as anything we do. You know, there was a time when Phyllis Lieblich used to walk around here, some of you remember Phyllis, and she had a sack of cookies, and she had envelopes for donations, and she'd go to meetings, and Fake can probably talk to that point better than me. But it was really an effective way of getting that. Finally, communications and administration, which is, Ann does that for Brede-Wilkins very well. You see things in the Green Horizon, you see things into door hangers, and we have a whole calendar of that goes all year. So people pick up responsibilities. I've written some. And this is one thing you gotta say about this board, unfortunately, is if you've got an idea, don't look around for somebody to support it. You're probably gonna do it. My notes this morning, my PowerPoints, we don't really have a great deal of staff support or any staff support sometimes. But in fact, we are a hands-on board. If we're doing something, we're gonna, not only create it, but deliver it as well. So things like, if we think it's important, we'll do it. Let's go, what are board members? Let's go to that chart 9 that's in front of you. That's first of all, you have to be a donor. I don't know anybody in the room that doesn't qualify right now. And but there is 6 board meetings per year, every other month. We usually January, March, every other month through November. And there's a calendar produced. What kinds of people do we need? I said it requires social and technical skills, but educators are especially welcome. I got an email, I know from Sue Scampus. Says she is an educator. I found out that she has 35 years on the faculty of Valencia College in the nursing program.
Oh my
Dear to
goodness.
my heart, so.
I didn't know that.
Well, I was gonna let that cat out of the bag, but when I was speaking to her, she knows the Valencia operations, and the original Brede-Wilkins founders, the original fund, if you look at the reason I brought that thing, see the title on that? Kay, read that to us. What's it say?
The Ellen H. Brady and Leonard O. Wilkins Scholarship Foundation operation.
The only place that exists is at Valencia College. Their very first thing they did before they formed the thing that we're talking about now was to make a donation to the Valencia Foundation, which goes back to 1988. And every year we can fund one 2-year scholarship at Valencia College. So it really is and right now we got one of our daughters was over at the Oaks, who was on the staff, the culinary server. She's now in the nursing program, and she can use that Valencia stuff to go into the UCF on the Connect program. So that works out. So let's talk about, new board members are asked to participate in the selection process. Now, that requires some computer capability, but, Dick, you wanna address that? How much is it it is a mechanized?
Well, yeah, the committee meets, on a Zoom.
On Zoom calls, okay.
Meeting, and, we meet the, other members of the select committee. At that time, I have no idea who they are until the meeting. And so, it's not a complicated procedure to get in on a Zoom call, but, that's necessary. And then you have to review all the applicants', applications, that are available only on the computer.
Okay. So that would be something. Now, that doesn't apply to everybody, because obviously, we've got people who can't do that. But to the extent possible, I think it really does give you some insight into how that process works. Then we do have the operating rules and procedures. It's not like we're not pretty well codified in terms of what the job, but we need a lot in terms of specificity, and every event we really work pretty detailed to pull it off. But the professional support of the Central Florida Foundation is really essential. So, to sum it all up, the scholarship board's always been a resident initiation since 1988. And we've always controlled the criteria for the scholarships. What has changed over time was it started out to be a private foundation. There's some tax advantages to being a public charity, so it went to be a public charity. We had a CEO of LifeSpace at one time who fell in love with the Brede-Wilkins, and so we became part of the LifeSpace Foundation in 2008. But in 2016, we got divorced. And so we spent a very tough year trying to do it, but we did do a program in 17, and it all came together. But in 2018, we started with the Central Florida Foundation, which has been a real godsend for me. They're really a bunch of pros. But I thought it would surprise you if I just ended with an anecdote, because in 1989, I think it was, the residents here were in a little bit of a dispute with the mother house, which was called LCRC at the time, Life Care Retirement Communities. And the dispute went to arbitration. The residents lost, which means not only did they not get what they want, but they had to pay the court fees. And so it was a kind of an acrimonious time around this campus. And we did not know what I'm gonna say up until, about a year ago, Ann? 2 years ago? We found the original talk that Leonard Wilkins gave to the residents here. And what he said was, it's time to put that behind us, form a community, and this scholarship fund can be the basis for that. It's something we can do together. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're not doing anything really for ourselves. We're doing it to team members that are leaving us to go get an education. So it really is a pretty high score on the altruism score. And that's what it's been here ever since. And it's been that for almost 2,000 annual awards. There's somewhere, and the amount of donations almost is within 50,000 of the amount of awards. Now, of course, there had to be some earnings to be able to do that and pay expenses, but they did do that. So we've received about 3 million, 8 or 9. So that the figures are in that essential sheet there. I can't read it from here, but you see, it's almost the same. Let me just, yeah. Thanks. The donations through the 35 years are $3.856 thousand, and the scholarships award are $3.811. So for the amount of money that's gone in, it's all going out in terms of scholarships. Obviously, you couldn't do that without earnings, and because we got expenses too. But I think it's a pretty good track record for any charity that can say that. And it's all been really honchoed by residents. We do not get support from the life space, although Joey has been very good about things like use of this room and things like that. So I want to honor him because he's been very, very good to work with, as were his predecessors. So back to the divorce time anyhow. So with that, I'm going to end and simply ask for questions.
Yeah, I'm just curious because of our entrance into this community was very quick. But, do you all have a program working with the salespeople, working through Joey, through the sales department, and to let them know, to share with potential new residents about all the different foundations, including yourself, that are really on property? And I really think that needs to maybe be something you should consider, because otherwise it helps to prepare a new resident, and I think you might get more participation more immediately once the understanding's there.
For me, it was a cold shower. I had to stretch to get in here, and then I got in here and I found, oh, you got a few civic things. You got Brede-Wilkins and you got the employee appreciation.
Right.
So it may be something that would fit into that.
I'll say a little something.
Oh, okay.
I'll mention it to them and say.
Good, thank you,
Would
thank
be
you.
a good idea.
We have a lot of other thoughts running through our minds, but once again, we need horsepower to do it. And one of the things that I think is really important, if scholarships help us get servers, quality servers, right now the greatest need in all places medical is nurses. And I would love to see us be able to have a robust enough program to have some relationship with the UCF School of Nursing, to have internships here and perhaps scholarships that could go work with that. And I've had some preliminary discussions. I think that's doable, but once again, that takes resources. We'd have to ramp up in order to do that. There's lots of other things like that. We need promotional films, things that goes to meetings of residents around here. That's what Isabella's doing back there for me right now, is keeping track of this, and she's good about pointing out I use my hands too often, and I stumble and choose the wrong word and all that sort of thing. So the only way you get better is to watch it, right? Okay, so there's lots of things that can be done. I see an even more robust program ahead. Anybody, any other questions? Over on this side, mostly.
Basil, I just wanted to comment that this colorful history of Brede-Wilkins, it's been going on for 35 years. I think you all have gotten the history books. We've run out of them and we're having new ones published, and they should be available in July, and they will obviously be right up to date. But that's something that's in the works right now.
It's something we can leverage too, and if we do come out with programs, because the old one was, we had Ann put together some annual papers, so they were up to date, so to speak, but we didn't really have a reprinting. In fact, I just sent out a couple packages this morning that I changed the address of the new people, and I said, we're out of this, but when the reprint's ready, we'll get you a copy. Yes. Questions? I did my half of it pretty good, right? Right on schedule. Now, Faggy has, one of the things we didn't talk about, where do you get donation envelopes? Right there. Where do you get the honor,
Right here.
in order, in honor of, and in memory of?
I have those too.
She does, and she
You can
prepared.
send out your own envelope with, to make, if you want to a certain designated person, and you can send out a note yourself. I have it in memory of and in honor of both.
Yes, Joni?
If anybody sees me around and you need something or wanna ask a question, I'll, if you need an envelope, I'll make sure that you get it the next day. Don't be afraid. You might not recognize me. I don't look like this all the time.
idea. Okay. Anybody else? Well, I'll simply say thank you for coming. I hope this was helpful. And, if you have suggestions of what would make it more helpful, let me know, okay?